Blood. That's what the stars looked like from Admiral Sarah Chen's viewport. Countless droplets of blood scattered across the velvet darkness of space. How fitting, she thought, considering what was about to unfold. The galaxy had forgotten an ancient truth. The most dangerous predator isn't the one that looks frightening, but the one that smiles while planning your demise. Final transmission from Earth Command confirmed, Admiral, Lieutenant Rodriguez announced, his voice steady despite the weight of what they were about to unleash. Operation Reckoning is green-lit across all sectors. Chen's fingers traced the worn edges of her command chair, remembering the day everything changed. 3 years ago, humanity had been welcomed into the galactic community with open arms and honeyed words. The Galactic Union, for not dying horribly, had even classified humans as a minimal threat species, soft, emotional creatures more interested in making friends than waging war. That assessment had amused Chen then. Now, it would prove to be the galaxy's most fatal mistake. "Begin transmission," she ordered, her voice carrying the cold certainty of an executioner's blade. Across every frequency, in every known language, a simple message began to play. "We welcomed you with open arms. Some of you laugh at us, and that is fine. But if you betrayed us, this is your only warning. Run." The message wasn't meant to frighten. It wasn't even meant as a threat. It was simply a courtesy, the kind humans had always extended before unleashing hell. Because if there was one thing the galaxy had yet to learn, it was that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology, their resilience, or even their creativity. It was their capacity for spite. In the observation deck of the Galactic Union Central Hub, Dr. Ilara Turvek, the Union's leading xenobiologist, felt her primary heart skip a beat as she watched the human fleet emerge from quantum space. Their ships weren't the sleek biological marvels of the Sleen, nor the crystalline perfection of Dolan engineering. They were ugly, brutal things, more akin to floating fortresses than proper spacecraft, but it wasn't their appearance that made her secondary heart stop as well. It was what they had done to them. "By the first light," she whispered, her tentacles curling in horror as her instruments analyzed the modifications. "They've weaponized everything, even the void itself." The humans had taken every piece of technology shared with them, medical nanites, quantum communications, even simple terraforming tools, and turned them into weapons that shouldn't be possible. Weapons that defied the very laws of physics. Weapons that made the galaxy's most fearsome arsenals look like children's toys. And standing at the helm of this nightmare fleet was Admiral Sarah Chen, a woman who had once shared tea and stories with the very beings she was about to destroy. She remembered their faces, their names, and most importantly, their weaknesses, because humans never forgot. Not really. They just waited. As the first shots were fired, and the void itself began to scream, a message appeared in the GUNDH's standard handbook of not being horribly killed, maimed, or otherwise inconvenienced. It was short, simple, and would soon become the most important rule in the galaxy. Don't upset the humans. Unfortunately for many species, this warning came far too late. The first to learn this lesson was the GUNDH Collective. They had presented themselves as healers, offering revolutionary medical treatments for the viridium burns that plagued human colonists on the frontier worlds. What the humans didn't know was that each treatment contained microscopic probes, gathering data on human biology for weapons development. The collective had done this to dozens of species before. It was practically a rite of passage for their scientists. But humans weren't like the others. "Target locked on the GUNDH medical facility," Weapons Officer Maria Santos reported, her voice carrying none of the emotion one might expect from someone about to commit what the galaxy would soon call creative genocide. "Project Hippocrates is ready for deployment." Admiral Chen allowed herself a small smile. The name had been her idea, a tribute to the ancient oath these aliens had perverted. Execute. The weapon that launched from the TSS Nemesis looked harmless, a simple medical transport pod, identical to the ones the GUNDH had used to deliver their treatments. As it approached the massive orbital facility, the GUNDH defenders didn't even raise their shields. Why would they? Their own scans confirmed it contained only medical supplies. They never detected the quantum-encoded virus hidden in the molecular structure of those supplies. A virus that humans had engineered using the very data the GUNDH had stolen. A virus that didn't kill, that would have been too merciful. Instead, It rewrote the GUNDH's healing factor, turning their miraculous regenerative abilities against them. The first screams started 3 minutes after the pod was brought aboard. Fascinating, Dr. Tevek noted in her observation log, watching through hidden sensors as the GUNDH's facility descended into chaos. The humans didn't just want revenge, they wanted poetry. Her tentacles twisted in distress as she recorded the effects. The GUNDHs weren't dying, they were healing. Continuously, uncontrollably, their bodies trying to repair damage that didn't exist, growing new tissue over healthy organs until... She turned off the feed. Some things didn't need to be documented. On the bridge of the Nemesis, Chen received confirmation of the weapon's effectiveness. "Send the second message," she ordered. Across the galaxy, on every frequency, in every language, the words appeared. First, do no harm. Remember that next time. But the galaxy didn't listen. The Sleene Empire, seeing what they thought was brutal desperation, decided to launch their own attack. Their living ships, evolved over millennia of genetic engineering, were considered invincible. No conventional weapon could harm them. Commander James Morrison, aboard the stealth carrier TSS Prometheus, watched them approach with the calm detachment of someone who had already won the war. "Begin Project Darwin," he ordered. Lieutenant Rodriguez, monitoring the quantum feeds from his station, couldn't help but ask, "Sir, permission to speak freely?" Rated. Was this necessary, the level of preparation we put into this response? Morrison turned to face his officer, his expression serious. 3 years ago, they came to our worlds. They took our trust, our hospitality, our willingness to believe in a better galaxy, and they used it against us. But do you know what their real mistake was? He paused, watching as the first wave of nanites reached the Sleene fleet. They gave us time to think. The Sleene ships began to change. Their organic hulls, once synchronized in perfect biological harmony, started evolving at impossible rates. But instead of becoming stronger, they were becoming more human, more aggressive, more spiteful. Within hours, the mighty Sleene armada had devoured itself. The galaxy watched in horror as the remnants of the Sleene fleet turned to cosmic dust. But Admiral Chen knew this was just the beginning. The Dolan Empire, the self-proclaimed masters of technological superiority, had yet to learn their lesson. "Quantum signatures detected," Lieutenant Rodriguez announced. "The Dolan fleet is emerging. Their numbers? Admiral, they've brought their entire third armada." The Dolan ships materialized like crystalline nightmares, their translucent hulls refracting starlight in ways that made them appear almost divine. At their center, the Dolan flagship, Eternal Dominion, dwarfed everything around it. Its commander, High Archon Vex 4, had personally overseen the theft of human colonies' resources, leaving millions to starve. "Open a channel," Chen ordered, straightening in her chair. When Vex 4's holographic form appeared, his crystalline features arranged in an expression of smug superiority, she simply said, "You should have killed us when you had the chance." Before the Archon could respond, Project Lazarus activated. The humans had spent 2 years studying the Dolan's quantum crystalline technology, not to copy it, but to break it in ways its creators had never imagined possible. Thousands of microscopic quantum resonators, hidden in debris fields months earlier, suddenly activated. Each one emitted a frequency that matched the exact resonance of Dolan crystal technology. In any other circumstance, this would have merely disrupted their systems temporarily. But humans had added a twist. Sir," a Dolan officer reported, panic creeping into their usually melodious voice. "Our hulls are singing!" The crystalline structures that made up their ships began to vibrate, but not with the usual harmonious frequencies the Dolans used for power. Instead, they resonated with human music, specifically a frequency pattern based on what humans called death metal. The result was catastrophic. Crystal structures designed to channel energy in precise, controlled ways were now being forced to vibrate in patterns that defied their very nature. Ships began to shatter, their crews exposed to vacuum as their once perfect vessels crumbled into glittering dust. Dr. Tevek, watching from her hidden station, had to admire the elegance of it. "They turned beauty into a weapon," she noted in her log. "Not through brute force, but through art." She paused, considering the implications. They didn't just want to destroy their enemies, they wanted to make a statement. On the Nemesis, Chen watched as the mighty Dolan fleet disintegrated to the rhythm of humanity's rage. But there was no satisfaction in her expression, only grim determination, because even this wasn't the true extent of humanity's response. "Begin Phase 3, she ordered. Deep in human space, Commander Morrison stood before the quantum entanglement device, humanity's ultimate answer to those who had wronged them. It wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense, it was something far worse. "Sir," his AI assistant reported, "Project Pandora is ready for initialization." Morrison nodded, remembering the words that had started this project. If they want to see humanity's darkest side, let's give them a show they'll never forget. The device activated, and across the galaxy, reality itself began to change. The quantum entanglement device hummed to life, its core pulsing with an otherworldly light that seemed to bend reality around it. This wasn't just another weapon, it was humanity's masterpiece of spite, born from the combination of stolen alien technology and human ingenuity. "Car monitoring stations report ready," Morrison's AI assistant announced. "Reality anchors are stable, quantum field integrity at 100%. Project Pandora was elegantly simple in its horror. Using the Dolan's crystal technology, combined with Sleen biological engineering, humans had created a device that could alter the fundamental constants of physics itself, but only in targeted areas. They weren't just breaking the rules of warfare, they were rewriting the rules of existence. On the bridge of the Nemesis, Admiral Chen received the confirmation signal. "Begin broadcast to all remaining hostile forces," she ordered. The message was brief. "You thought we were bound by the same limitations as you. That was your final mistake." The device activated, and in carefully selected regions of space, specifically the home systems of those who had betrayed humanity, the laws of physics began to shift. Gravity became selective, choosing what it would and wouldn't affect. Light began moving at different speeds depending on its direction. Quantum probability collapsed in ways that favored human ships while causing alien technology to fail in increasingly improbable ways. Dr. Turveg watched in scientific horror as her instruments tried to make sense of what was happening. "They've weaponized chaos itself," she whispered, her tentacles trembling. Not random chaos, directed, controlled, deliberate chaos. In the Zolarian system, where the leadership of the anti-human coalition had gathered to plan their final offensive, ships suddenly found themselves unable to maintain stable orbits. Energy weapons fired by alien vessels would curve around human ships as if guided by an invisible hand. Communication signals arrived before they were sent, creating endless loops of confusion and panic. "This isn't possible," High Commander Zaxstall of the remaining Sleen forces transmitted. "You can't just change how the universe works." Admiral Chen's response was characteristically human. "Watch us." But it was Commander Morrison who delivered the final blow. As alien civilizations struggled to cope with their suddenly unreliable reality, he activated the second stage of Project Pandora. This time, the changes were more subtle and far more terrifying. Across affected space, probability itself began to favor human operations. Equipment failures occurred at precisely the worst moments for their enemies. Random quantum fluctuations consistently worked in humanity's favor. The universe itself seemed to be conspiring to ensure human victory. "You see," Morrison transmitted to the panicking alien fleets, "we could have just destroyed you, but you needed to understand why the galaxy's first rule should have been, don't make humans think creatively about revenge." Dr. Tovek, finalizing her report to the Galactic Union, added a personal note. "The true horror isn't what humans can do to physics, it's that they thought of doing it in the first place. They didn't just want to win, they wanted to make victory itself inevitable." As the last of the hostile fleets either surrendered or succumbed to their newly unreliable reality, Admiral Chen stood on her bridge, watching the stars. Some of them now moved in patterns that defied traditional astronomy, a permanent reminder of humanity's response to betrayal. "Send the final message," she ordered. The final message that echoed across the galaxy was deceptively simple. "To those who remain, remember this day. Not as the day humanity took revenge, but as the day you learned why human and impossible should never be used in the same sentence." In the aftermath, as the galaxy struggled to comprehend the full scope of what had happened, Admiral Chen stood in the newly established neutral zone, facing the assembled representatives of the surviving civilizations. The room was silent, filled with species that had once laughed at humanity's primitive nature. None were laughing now. "You came to our worlds," Chen began, her voice carrying across the chamber without need for amplification, another impossible feat humans had casually mastered. "You saw our art, our music, our endless capacity for kindness, and you mistook it for weakness. You never asked yourselves why a species that could be so gentle chose to be gentle." In her hidden observation post, Dr. Tovek was completing her final analysis of human behavior. Her tentacles moved frantically across multiple interfaces as she documented what would become known as the human paradox. The more she studied, the more she understood why the GUNDH's warning about humans had been so specific. The fundamental error, she wrote, was assuming humans operate within the same constraints as other species. They don't. Where we see limitations, they see challenges. Where we see impossibility, they see inspiration. But most dangerously, where we see sufficient force, they see room for escalation. Commander Morrison, now overseeing the implementation of the new reality zones, received reports from across former enemy space. The changes they had introduced to the laws of physics were stabilizing, creating permanent regions where reality itself served as a monument to humanity's creativity. Some called it cruel. Morrison called it educational. "Sir," his AI assistant interrupted, "we're detecting unusual quantum signatures from the preserved zones. The altered physics, it's evolving." Morrison smiled. That had been part of the plan all along. They hadn't just changed reality, they had made it self-modifying, ensuring that any future attempts to circumvent these spaces would be met with new and increasingly creative responses. Back in the chamber, Admiral Chen was concluding humanity's terms. "We will return to our space," she announced. "We will continue our art, our music, our exploration of what you call impossible. And you will maintain a very respectful distance." A brave Zalarian representative raised an appendage. "And if we don't?" Chen's smile made several species involuntarily retreat. "Then you'll discover that what you've seen was merely humanity being restrained." As the delegates departed, Dr. Tovek added a final note to her report. "The greatest weapon humans possess isn't their technology, their adaptability, or even their ability to alter reality. It's their imagination, combined with their capacity for escalation. They don't just think outside the box, they question why the box exists, then weaponize its existence." The GUND immediately upgraded their primary directive. The new entry read, "Don't upset the humans. This means you, yes you, don't test them, don't challenge them. And above all, don't make them think creatively about solving problems. The universe may not survive their solution." As Chen returned to the Nemesis, Lieutenant Rodriguez asked the question many had been wondering. "Was all this really necessary, Admiral?" Chen looked out at the stars, some of which now moved in patterns that defied conventional physics, and replied, "No." But they needed to understand that necessary was never the point. The point was making sure that for the next million years, whenever someone thinks about crossing humanity, they'll remember what happened when the last group tried. In the depths of space, reality continued to dance to humanity's tune, a permanent reminder that some lines should never be crossed. Because humans don't just fight wars, they rewrite the rules of existence itself, just to prove a point. And somewhere in a quiet corner of the galaxy, Dr. Tovek added one final line to her report. "The most terrifying thing about humans isn't what they did, it's knowing that they're probably already thinking about what they could do next time." The ripples of humanity's demonstration of power echoed through the cosmos in unexpected ways. Species that had once dominated through fear now found themselves grappling with a new kind of terror. The knowledge that somewhere out there, a race of beings could casually rewrite reality itself just to make a point. In the Centauri sector, where one of the reality-altered zones remained as a perpetual reminder, a young Sleen scholar named Kickstal studied the shimmering boundary where normal space met human-modified physics. His research vessel, heavily shielded against the unpredictable effects, hovered at what was considered a safe distance. Recording log entry 247. Kickstal dictated, his bioluminescent patterns flickering with excitement and fear. "The altered space continues to evolve. Yesterday we observed light forming perfect geometric patterns before reaching our senses. Today it's moving in spirals. The humans didn't just change physics, They made it playful. On the other side of the galaxy, the Dolan Empire, or what remained of it, had transformed from a conquering force into a society obsessed with understanding human nature. Their once mighty warships had been converted into research vessels, each one dedicated to answering a single question. How had they misjudged humanity so catastrophically? High Archon Vextor's successor, a young reformer named Ixil, stood before the Crystalline Council presenting their latest findings. "We've been analyzing human entertainment media from before our miscalculation," she announced, her crystalline form refracting light in patterns that conveyed deep unease. "They had been warning us all along. Every story, every piece of fiction, they were showing us exactly what they were capable of imagining. We just didn't take it seriously." The council chamber erupted in harmonic discord as the implications sank in. The humans hadn't just defeated them, they had announced their capabilities in advance, through what the Dolans had dismissed as primitive storytelling. Meanwhile, aboard the TSS Nemesis, Admiral Chen was reviewing reports from the border zones when an alert caught her attention. A new species, unaware of recent history, had begun probing the edges of human space. "Should we send them the standard warning, Admiral?" Lieutenant Rodriguez asked. Chen studied the data for a moment before shaking her head. "No. Send them our entertainment archives instead. Let them learn about us the way we tried to teach everyone else, through our stories." Morrison watched the quantum readings fluctuate as Project Pandora continued reshaping reality around them. "You know what the truly ironic part is," he said to his AI assistant. "They thought we were primitive because we still used memes and jokes. They never realized that humor was humanity's way of processing the impossible." Across the modified zones, alien civilizations were learning this lesson the hard way. The Sleens' biological weapons turned against them by human DNA, the Dolans' perfect crystalline ships shattered by death metal frequencies. But it was the psychological impact that truly broke them. "Sir," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported, "the Zellerian High Command is requesting clarification on our latest transmission." "What did we send them?" "A cat video, sir. Specifically, a compilation of cats knocking things off tables with the caption, 'Gravity is optional.'" In her observation post, Dr. Turvik was documenting the unprecedented phenomenon of an entire alien species having an existential crisis. The Zellerians, masters of gravitational manipulation, were watching their carefully controlled artificial gravity wells behave like temperamental house cats, responding only when and how they felt like it. "Begin Phase 4, Chen ordered from the Nemesis. The next stage would demonstrate why humans had been classified as a minimal threat, not because they were harmless, but because they had mastered the art of appearing harmless while being anything but. Project Lazarus activated across the galaxy. Reality itself began to operate on human rules, not the cold, efficient logic of alien science, but the chaotic, improbable logic of human storytelling. Probability curved toward narrative causality. The more dramatic or ironic an outcome, the more likely it became. "They're calling it weaponized narrative physics," Morrison noted with satisfaction. "As if we haven't been doing that since we first gathered around campfires to tell stories." The Galactic Union, for not dying horribly, hastily updated their primary directive. "Don't upset the humans, because they won't just kill you. They'll turn your defeat into a cautionary tale that will be reposted across the galaxy for millennia." In the end, it wasn't humanity's weapons that broke the alien alliance. It was the realization that humans had turned the entire war into content. Every defeat was memorialized in memes, every victory celebrated with viral dances. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations found themselves reduced to background characters in humanity's story. And that, perhaps, was the cruelest revenge of all. The final chapter of humanity's response came not with a bang, but with a meme that spread across the galaxy faster than light thanks to their modified physics, that was now literally possible. It showed a simple Earth cat pushing a glass off a table, captioned, "Gravity was never your friend, it was just letting you borrow stability." Admiral Chen stood on the Nemesis observation deck, watching as the last of the reality-altered zones settled into their new patterns. The stars danced in impossible formations, some forming shapes that looked suspiciously like human emoticons. "Send the final transmission," she ordered. The message was simple: "We'll be in our corner of the galaxy, making art, telling stories, and defying physics. Don't make us get creative again. Dr. Turvek completed her final report to GUNDH with a single line that would become the most cited warning in galactic history. The humans didn't just win. They turned warfare into performance art, physics into poetry, and their revenge into a story that will echo through eternity. And somewhere they're probably laughing about it. The Galactic Union's updated handbook now began with a simple equation. Human kindness equals infinite human spite equals infinite plus 1. Because, in the end, the galaxy learned that humans hadn't just mastered the art of war, they'd mastered the art of making their enemies regret ever giving them ideas in the first place. And somewhere in human space, a cat knocked a cup off a table, and reality itself adjusted to make the moment more dramatically satisfying. If you enjoyed this tale of human ingenuity and spite, don't forget to smash that like button, though maybe not as hard as humanity smashed the laws of physics. Hit subscribe to join our cosmic community, and turn on that notification bell to be the first to know when we drop new stories about humanity's creative solutions to galactic problems. Share this with your fellow humans, and any aliens who need a friendly warning, and leave a comment below telling us what impossible thing you'd weaponize if given the chance. Remember, every like makes reality a little more interesting, and every share helps spread the most important rule in the galaxy: don't upset the humans. Until next time, keep being beautifully, terrifyingly human.